This conference will now be recorded.
Yeah, so this is the first session for me as well in this new year. I'm wishing you guys a happy new year. Let's begin with the session. So in the previous last two sessions, including the demo, we have discussed about what is performance testing all about, what is the actual criteria, and how we test it, what is the use of the Vusion component, and what are the different types of performance testing that we actually do. And we also discussed some of the definitions of performance testing as well. Uh, now, today we'll discuss the importance of architecture, and we'll see what types of architecture we have and how important. This is one of the important concepts in the performance testing course. So generally, let's assume you have some page like Gmail or Facebook or anything. You try to log in. So you enter your user ID and password, and you click on login, and the home page appeared after 1 minute or 2 minutes. So ideally, it should have navigated to home page in less than 2 seconds or less than 5 seconds. Okay, but for some reason, it navigated to home page. It loaded for some time, and then it navigated to home page after 1 minute or 2 minutes. So, uh, do you think it is an issue, or is it fine? So, any it possibly it could be an issue, right? So,
Yes.
so what is your approach? What is your approach in identifying what could be the issue? So you have to identify the issue, right? In order to provide your observations to the development team, you have to analyze the issue for what went wrong, where it went wrong. So what is your approach in identifying is the key important thing here. I know as a performance tester, uh, we have to understand the architecture of our application, architecture of our application. Okay, so okay, so let's assume this is the same example which I told you. If we are entering some username and password, and we are clicking on submit button, and something goes wrong. Okay, it could navigate to home page after some time, or it could not even load the home page. So there could be some issue. So we have to identify that. So what is that issue? That issue is called bottleneck. In performance testing terminology, it is called bottleneck. So wherever you go in any of the interviews, if you say I have identified many issues, in our applications, that could be you might have really did it, but the terminology which you should use is that you have identified bottlenecks. Okay, so if you see, if you enter username and password and you click on submit, and if it is loading and if it is navigating after some time, then that means our login process is slow. The reason could be the issue with the application. So that's what I wrote here. Whatever the issues because of which the login process is slow is called bottleneck. Okay. So in order to identify the bottleneck, we need to understand the architecture of the software application. Okay. Backend, there might be so many components. For example, you are entering username and password, and the database is down. If you click on submit, your code should validate the credentials, in the database, right? So if your database is down, then it will not be able to validate, and you will not be able to log in successfully. Okay, that is an important thing as part of with respect to the login functionality. Okay, sometimes your application server might be down. Okay, whatever your application is there, that application server might be down. So sometimes your web server might be down. Okay, there is a stream, the upstream components, downstream components, even those might be down. Okay, so you have to understand your application architecture. What are your application downstream, upstream? Okay, what are the application server, what is the database server there. You have to understand these this architecture, and then only you will be able to identify the bottleneck. Okay, then in order to now there might be app server, there might be a database server, but before that we should understand what is a server. Some of you might already know what is a server, but for those who are not aware of that this terminology server, so in general we can say that any program which will take, or any program or any component which is taking a request, and if it is processing a request and sending the response back, we can call it as server. Okay, for example, you might have know this what is that, WebSphere, JBoss. These are some of the examples of application servers. So it need not be this WebSphere or anything. Any program, you can write a simple program if it is taking your request. Okay, if it is able to process your request and sends the response back to you, then you can call it as a server. Okay, so that is a server. So let's assume this is a client and this is a server, and we are sending some request to the client. Okay, we are sending, so whatever is there, the client is sending request to server. Now the server, it accepts the request and it processes the request and it sends the response back. So now this particular thing, whatever the component does it, that we can call it as server. Okay, now can the server software can the server alone can be the the handle everything? What I mean to say is that the software alone, can it handle everything? It should require some hardware support, right? Okay, for example, if I give you a particular Microsoft Excel software to you in a pen drive or something, will you be able to use it directly? No, right? You will not be able to use it directly. You might need a laptop or a computer or a desktop to use that pen drive and use that software as well. So in the same case, the software alone cannot do its work on its own. It needs the support of the hardware. So that's the reason we mentioned it. Combination of both software and hardware is called server. Okay, any software which is able to receive the request, process it, and sends a response back with the help of a hardware, we can call it as a server. Okay, any software which is able to understand your request, process your request, and sends the response back with the help of a hardware, we can call it as a server. Okay, so software alone cannot be a server anytime, so it needs the support of the hardware. Okay, this is wherever it is, the common definition of server is this only. Okay, in any terminology, if in in regularly in software IT field, we use this term server. So the only definition for server is this. The best definition can be this one.
Uh, uh, Actually, just a question here. I wanted to ask you here. Like you, initially when you were explaining the architecture, you mentioned like we need to understand the application here. So
Yes.
my only question is like sometimes whenever we are working on a product or we are working on any applications, so sometimes although it's like the application is written in a Node.js, but it have a multi-layered applications, right? It can be like for example, the UI part they have written in a Node.js application, but the backend is using a kind of a Flex, and then there are several layers of so how you like do like when we do POCs or when we try to understand the application, so how we handle this kind of a
See,
scenario like when
actually,
yeah.
yeah. So we should not be much concerned about the language or the technology they use for implementing, okay, the architecture. So our only concentration should be what are the different components that are existing in the architecture. Okay, for example, if I'm typing something from the front end, okay, how many layers it is crossing to reach database. Okay, so what are the components? So what is the last component? So generally, the last component would be the database. So we have to understand that components. What are the names of those servers? Okay, is it a WebSphere? Is it a Tomcat? Okay, or what is a database server? Is it Oracle? Is it a SQL server, or something like that? So we have to understand these. Why we have to know this? Because, for example, if something goes wrong, we have to identify in which layer it is getting stuck. Okay, where it went wrong. So is database down? Is the query responding slow, or if the query is responding quick? Okay, then your application code is slow in sending the data back to the client. Okay, so we have to understand, we have to separate these layers in understanding. So that's the reason we use APM tool. If you know, there are some APM tools like AppDynamics, Dynatrace and all. There we'll be able to see component wise. For example, the request from client to application server reached in 2 seconds, okay, or 1 second. From application server to database server, the request went in 1 second. So we'll be able to see that level information in the APM tool. And in the response, the database sends the response from database server to application server is 1 second only, let's assume. From application server to client, it is 5 seconds. So there we'll be able to see that there is some issue in where it went wrong, or why it is slow there. We have to analyze. And the APM tools are very easy and very strong actually. They will be able to give us the exact SQL query as well. For example, in the database, if the database server is sending you response in 10 seconds, it will clearly mention you which query is giving you 10 seconds response in 10 seconds. What is that query? We can directly copy that query and we can send it to development team that, hey, we overall, when I executed my performance test, the overall response time is 13 seconds. Out of these 13 seconds, this query is taking 10 seconds. Okay, so at that level, if you provide information to development team, it will be easy to fix the issue. So actually, that is our
Yes,
role.
yes. Yeah, I got this point, but like, see, like as you mentioned, like the DB layer comes at the last part. But how about like say I use a Fiddler or I use a HTTP watch, any tool, but they will only like how it will happen if the APM tools are not able to capture the traffic. Like for example, one application that I'm currently working, it uses a like a Node.js thing. It uses when it's a report generation. When they generate the report, it's a flex one. So now when I'm using a Fiddler or if I'm using a Wireshark or a network traffic, right? So
Mhm.
the like it's a HTTPS. So the Fiddler cannot handle the TCP dump, or the Fiddler cannot capture
Actually, so you mean
the
to say
flex
that
request. Yeah, yeah.
you want to capture that network, how much time it took from transmitting from one component to another component, the bandwidth
No, that
calculation
is
and
not
all.
my end goal. That is not my end
Okay.
goal. My end goal is like say if I'm working on an application, as you mentioned, if I wanted to understand the architecture, I use the APM tool. APM tool will just give me a HTTP request, kind of or kind of like get and post calls. But what happens if those APM tools does not able to understand the traffic, or say if it's a flex application, they might not be able to record the traffic. So even if I tried with Fiddler also, those tools are not helping me out. So how will I
See,
like understand
actually,
the layering
I
part? Yeah, this
I
thing.
agree, but Fiddler can give you the immediate component request only. For example, you hit a request from client, it will tell you to which component, to which URL it sent the request. Okay, till there itself. So after that, it might interact with some other components as well. Okay, so the integration
So
might
those are
be between
asynchronous requests.
yeah.
Those are asynchronous calls, and it's continuously polling the DB, and it doesn't have a fixed interval. One user can send like till the time the entire data is populated from the DB, it goes and continuously calling the asynchronous call, and it's a flex with multi-layered. So the fiddler is not.
Either you have to hook up your application to either of the APM tool or some profiling tools, like you have JProfiler. Okay, so you have like tools called your kit, JProfiler. So you can see, if you want to capture each and everything, logs, everything, there are tools available in the market. But if your application team or project team is not using all those tools, then there you have to, if that is very rare, then you have to find some solution. How best I can give my observations from performance testing. See, if you are not having any source, simple, if you are not having any source, whatever the resources you have, out of that you will get some information and you give it to the application team. So beyond that, we cannot do anything. So that is as simple as that. So if you
Okay,
have
okay.
some source, based on that only, whatever we are not we cannot anticipate, or we cannot create URLs or methods or codes on our own, right? So we should have some source which will capture the traffic. So without capturing the traffic, there is no point in analyzing. So where it went wrong, how it went wrong, even the development team has to get get the information from some source. Okay, so even they cannot directly say that, okay, if this goes wrong, this might be the issue. If this goes wrong, this might be the issue. No, even they cannot tell directly. Either they might have some source, or we should have some source. Okay, so even they will have some APM tool. In fact, nowadays all development teams are hooking up their applications with the APM, any one of the APM tool like New Relic, AppD, or Dynatrace, because it gives us a clear idea, where it is going wrong. In fact, we have if you want to capture entire logs, you can use Splunk. Okay, if you are integrating your application with Splunk, it will give you everything, all the logs, whatever the logs it has, everything it will capture. We
Okay.
have to. So yeah, if you are at a lead level, or or if you are
Yeah, but Splunk
uh,
here, like even though if I'm integrating my application with Splunk also, so there is a certain level of logging, like, or I need to write
no,
queries, right?
no.
Like say what
Yeah,
parameters. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I agree. So that logging part, development team has to take care that, while handling the exceptions, they have to ensure that all these issues are getting logged in Splunk. They have to hook up their application to that. So they have to take care of
Okay.
it.
Okay. Also, one last thing, like one last question, Krishak here. Like normally, like when I see, like when I was working on the application, I see like some application that I worked on. They say like, is it like a web development? Some knowledge is required because sometimes what happens, when
Uh,
we handle the web part, it's like a
I agree.
JavaScript or the headers and the footers, how they are getting
I
called
agree.
or what envelope that thing do. Like I think that we sometimes we need to have some understanding of that, right? Like,
Yes. Yes.
yes, means until
See,
unless
actually,
we don't have a,
there is a difference.
yeah,
Yeah, got your point. There is a difference between a performance tester and a performance engineer. Yeah. So nowadays, companies are expecting a performance tester to change his or her work profile to performance engineer. So while performance engineer should have a minimum development knowledge. For example, 70 to 80% of our applications are Java based. Okay, so or at least most of the banking applications or financial institution applications are Java based. So you must have at least a core Java knowledge. When I say core Java, you should know what is a method. Okay, what are the variables, what are the different types it supports, what are oops concepts, what is a thread, okay, what is multi-threading. At least till that concepts, if you know, you should be able to see. If some point of time, if you are able to see the code, see 70% of the companies, they don't give access to performance testers to view the code. Okay, beyond it, if some of the mid-level companies or some of the major companies are giving access you to view the code, then you should be able to analyze the code. Okay, this is happening like this. Okay, this is a method. Okay, this is calling this method, this is calling this method. You should be able to understand the code at least little bit. I'm not saying it will come overnight. For example, if you are facing some issue, then what you generally do, you schedule a session with developers. There, you can have a demo session kind of thing, where it went wrong, what are the methods it's calling, what is the code. You should be able to provide your inputs as well. So that level of requirement is there currently. So
actually
you should have minimum coding knowledge.
the the challenges what we face is like core Java, like if it is a collection hash set or
Yeah.
a
Yes.
it's
Yes.
a it's an object based, those level of codes we can understand or we can write those codes. But when they mix the code with the web development, like if it is a HTTP request, so there is some header information that is
Yeah.
getting passed on, or if there is like some objects are getting called internally, like a Ajax request. So is it like even though you know Java, but don't know the web
Yeah. See,
development,
I
there comes the
actually.
bottleneck. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, see,
There,
header level information. What are the different parameters we can pass in the header? See, I can give you all that information. So I can give you a document later on. So I think, see, that is more than enough actually. It will help you, what kind of information that generally the headers will contain, what will body contain. So the high level information, if you have, that will be sufficient. And nowadays, coming to UI and all this Node.js and all, this is all out of the box. In the recent past, they are asking us to learn, but it not all companies, but it's very rare that too. So slowly it will come, but not currently. Not everyone are asking that. But it will be good. See, if you know core Java and all, it's not that complex to understand these headers and all. See, there are some basic metrics which we have to understand with respect to headers. That metrics and all, I'll give you a detailed document. It will be helpful
Yeah,
for
like
you.
if you can just give some idea, so that will at least give us some header like web development knowledge, because core Java is okay, like basic automation programs like codes we can write. Just if the web development becomes
Sure,
a
sure.
bit tricky.
We can take a separate session for that. I can discuss you with offline as well. But if required, we can have one session as well later on. Okay?
Yeah, okay, thanks,
So
yeah. Okay.
that's all about the server. What is the server we have discussed. And if you are aware of it, we have already learned, way back in college days as well. If some of you might already, coming from computer science background, we have heard about 1 tier, 2 tier, 3 tier, entire architectures and all. So nowadays, most of the things are entire architecture where we have, multiple servers. Okay, for example, this is a client. When we enter something, when we click on a link or we enter something, the server the request might go back to server. So the flow is something like this. From client, it might go to web server, it might go to app server, and then it might go to the DB server. Okay, so what is a what is a web server? Basically, it's a program. It will handle all that static content, HTML content. It's used to display the HTML content in our browser. Okay, it will take care of that. Okay, so and that is web server. And app server is all where all the logic is written, the entire code, the backend code is written, the logic, whatever the logic you want to implement. Okay, for example, if you enter username and password, if you click on submit, what should happen if you click on submit? That logic is maintained in the app server. Okay, and the database server, we all know the data will be there, and the request will flow from client, web server, app server, and DB server, and the response might come back in the same sequence. In some of the projects, web server and app server can be same. Okay, earlier long back, if a small project, all three can be in the same system as well. But nowadays they are segregating because to identify issues, to fix issues easily, they have segregated web server, app server, and DB server. But in small projects now also, web server and app server are in same system. Okay, so but most of the projects architecture will be like this. So client, web server, app server, and DB server. So web server, you have Tomcat and all. App server, you have WebSphere, JBoss. Okay, web server, we have Apache HTTP as well. That is also a web server. So app server, we have WebSphere, and we have JBoss, WebLogic. Okay, and DB server, Oracle, SQL Server, and all. And for example, in some of the projects, what some issues might happen, like one application server might not be able to take the complete load. Okay, for example, this is the app server. Now the configuration is set in such a way that it will accept only 500 requests at a time. Okay, the configuration is set in such a way that the hardware is maintained in such a way that it will accept only 500 requests at a time. What will happen if it is getting 600 to 700 requests and it's failing? Okay, it's not able to send a response back. Okay, it's throwing errors, it is not able to take the load. Like we have discussed the example of restaurant in the previous session. At some point of time, the server might not be able to handle all the requests. So what should happen? Generally, what they'll do in the performance testing projects is either they add one more server, either they add one more application server, or they will increase the infrastructure of the existing application server. Okay, they might increase the RAM from 8 GB to 16 GB. If they want to upgrade the existing server, they can do that. Or if they want to add one additional server, they can still do that. Okay, so for example, if they are adding additional application server, this is how it will be. Okay, the request, the request, if there are 600 requests, 300 will be here, 300 will be going there. Who will send 300 here and 300 to that server? There is a concept called load balancer. So that that component will take care of it. Okay, the load balancing. And then when we add additional servers, then we call it as scale out in performance engineering or performance testing terminology. When we add additional servers, we call it as scale out. Okay, when we are observing issues with respect to our application performance, then these are the possible solutions. Okay, that's what I'm telling. And when we upgrade the existing server, then it is called scale up. Okay, so scale out and scale up, these are the important terminologies as well. These terminologies, questions related to these might come up in the interviews as well. So they might ask you some questions like, have you faced any issues with application server throwing errors or going down, unable to handle load? Okay, so what was the solution they have given? How did they fix it? So you might tell that the application server was not able to take 100% load. So what they decided is they decided to scale out. So they added one more server. Okay, or instead you can say that they have upgraded the existing server. Okay, they scaled up. That's what you can tell. Okay, so I have some interview questions with respect to this. I will share you at the end of the course. Okay,
Uh,
and
just this web server, just hang on. Like this web server you mentioned, is it like we use Tomcat or Ninjax? So is
yeah,
it like
Tomcat, Redshift.
every web server like varies depending, like in Tomcat we have a Catalina, or in Ninjax we have a confile. So is it like one should have a basic understanding of moreover like the main web server that are
No need.
predominantly used?
No need
Uh,
actually. Not much required. If you know what is the web server they are using, that's enough. See, because we will not dig into that infrastructure level and the server level activities we will not perform. If server is done, see, we as a performance engineer will not be able to do anything from our end. We don't have control on it. But only thing we can say is this web server is behaving differently and it has some issues. What is that issue? We can identify with the help of APM tool and we can provide our input. But what is the solution that they are going to implement? The development team will decide based on the requirement. Okay, so they are the best persons to analyze, but from the performance engineering perspective, we can provide our inputs as well. So it's up to them. We can schedule a call and discuss, and the best solution can be implemented. Okay,
okay.
so
Okay.
they have the product owner. It's his final decision what should be done, because the servers are related to the cost, money, the budget issues. Well, they are directly related to budget, right? The servers and all. So based on the budget, they will decide whether to upgrade the existing one or to add one more server or everything. So we can provide only our observations. What is the solution? They can only decide based on the budget. So
One
how
question.
these? Yeah, tell me.
Yeah, can you go back to the previous slide? Yes. So, like, if we integrated this kind of structure in the APM tool, so will it say like how many requests are coming to the web server and how many are successful or not?
Yes,
So
it
how
will tell
many are
you.
going?
Yeah, if you actually, we have to set time. For example, your load test ran from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. So in the app, in any of the APM tool, you have to set your time first of all, during which time period you want to fetch the logs. So if you set the time, then it will give you how many requests are coming. For example, 2000 requests came from client to web server. Okay, to the application server. To the application server, 2000 requests are coming. Out of those 200, how many passed, how many failed, how many went, how many errors, how many are slow, how many are very slow. Okay, or what is the reason, because of which query it is slow, or what could be the issue. Everything it will tell you clearly. So you will get a clear picture. So that, say, actually it's a big course. Actually, the APM tool, it could be AppDynamics or Dynatrace. It's a big concept actually. So we have to learn that tool first. See, it will give you each and every information. So we have to learn what are the different options available, what are the different features, how to fetch that information. Features are there, but we have to understand, we have to learn how to do that. For example, APM tool, we can download these heap dumps, thread dumps also through AppDynamics and all. Okay, but we should know how to download. Okay, what is the process? What are the steps to follow? So for that, you need to learn that tool, how that tool is, what are the features it is providing and all. Okay, so how best we can learn the tool, the best we can get from that the information.
Okay, do
Actually,
you
but
have any
once we, yeah, please go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
do you have any like an open source APM tool, like just integrate
We have
software?
yeah, actually you can get, if it is Java, you can use the JVM console and all to
Hmm.
see what went wrong and all within Java only.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
ideally, these APM tools provide more information than that. Yeah? It probably in a graphical representation through email, or for example, let's say your application server can handle only 500 requests. That's what you set it. And if your
Hmm.
requests are reaching 490, 480, it will send you an
Yeah,
immediate alert
alert,
email that
alert.
it's
Yes,
reaching.
yes,
So those
yes.
kind of additional features are there. We can set our own
Hmm.
graph, we can set our own limits. So there
Hmm.
is always a
Hmm.
difference
Hmm.
between a freeware and actually paid tools.
Okay.
Uh,
So I can give you the list of freeware tools and the paid tools. I can provide you that information. So
okay.
Okay.
I have one
we'll
Thank
pick up that
question.
list.
Yeah, I have one question, Krishik here. Like normally when we talk about the web server, like a different Tomcat or any web server, so the way they deploy the application, they open a list of the ports. There can be two ports. There can be a UI port, like where like once we open a URL in a browser, there is some 443 or default ports are there. And sometimes there is a web services port also, like mainly when the request is sent to the web server and then it is redirected to the app server, it the services port, like the port used by the APIs. So then this port is there. And when, like say for example, we are using a JDK or we are using anyone, we do some like we put some kind of a proxy, like which port it is connecting to. If I wanted
Yeah.
to read a JVM kind of a setup, so
Actually, that
like how we
information will be there on
identify.
the development. Now, actually,
Yeah.
what is the process is before we take any project, we will have
Mm,
a call meeting with the development team, wherein we will gather all non-functional requirements. When I say non-functional requirements, we will get all the details like what is the app's web server, what is the configuration of it, what is the app server, what is the web server, what is the DB server they are using. Okay, and is there any proxy restrictions? Is there any certificate required? So all these details we will take before actually we start the scripting and all. We do scripting in Vusion, right? All the functionality, everything. So before everything only, we will take all this information. We have one more session for NFR requirements discussion. So I will give you a questionnaire. So generally, as a performance tester, we have to give that questionnaire to the development team. Then they will fill out all those details. Then we will have a call. We will get to an understanding. Okay, once we get to an understanding, we will accept the project. So I will give you that questionnaire. I have good questionnaire, couple of good questionnaires, and it has all the questions, whatever the questions we have to ask from we have to get from the development team. What are the information? We have all those queries. I will share those documents to you guys. So it is more than enough.
okay, actually, because when they talk about the ports, they give me the ports on the LB side, load balancer side, and on the
Yeah,
application
yeah.
side, there can be a different set of ports. So
So
even though
that
I
is
am hitting the
yeah,
request on the LB, it's giving
yeah,
some error, but I am not able to identify what port is getting called from the
yeah.
backend. That is one
that,
thing
that is
that
our
we.
responsibility only to get the information from the development team. And when you're creating your script, right, in the Vusion. So, and if you want to
Yeah.
run, and all these proxy details, port details, if they are mandatory, then we have to use those settings only while running the script. Otherwise, your script will not work. So that there is some dependency. Then we have to sort it out with the help of development team, because they are the ones who have created that, right?
Yeah, but do we need to use any DLLs in Vusion like for
No, no,
configuring
no, no need,
this?
no need of adding any DLLs in Vusion. It's not like Jmeter. So Vusion, we need not add anything. Based on the protocols we select, so it will automatically support all the features. So it depends if it's a Java application. A web protocol means If it's a web protocol, we'll select the web protocol while scripting, right? So all the options, all the runtime settings we get for that protocol. So that is sufficient. So we'll see
Okay.
that when we actually script it, we have so many settings there. I'll show you all those settings, so we can get that information from development team, and which are mandatory. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
So, and you know this protocol, right? For example, if one component wants to interact with another component, uh, it should follow some set of rules. For example, if I'm a client, I'm sending a request to web server. So web server should understand what I'm sending. Okay. So and the web server, whatever it is sending to application server, and application server sending to DB server. So there should be some protocol which should be followed. Otherwise, you know, the communication, each server cannot understand what other server is sending. So there should be some protocol. It's in general meaning, protocol means a set of rules. We all know that. And so all these servers, they follow some protocols. So see, set of rules depending on the kind of communication required between client and server, protocol is selected by the architect. So who you might ask, you know, which protocol we have to select while scripting, okay, or while development only. All this is a, you know, very basic concepts while development. The architect level, they will decide it. Okay, the architect level, the leads, the development leads and all, because they know the end product. They have vision, you know, about the end product, so they know what are the different protocols we have to use. So based on that, they will use. For example, we have some protocols like HTTP, HTTPS, FTP, file transfer protocol. For sending emails, we have SMTP, mail transfer, mail protocol and all. So these are the general terms which we have to know as a performance tester or performance engineer. So that's all about the software architecture. And apart from this we have this performance testing lifecycle as well. So these are the different concepts we have as part of performance testing lifecycle. See, as a software developer also, they have software development lifecycle, and you know, the functional tester also, they have testing lifecycle. Okay, so in the same way, software testing lifecycle they have. In the same way, as a performance tester, we have performance testing lifecycle, or we can say process usually followed in performance testing project. So generally in any interviews, they might ask you what is the process you follow in your performance testing project. So you should not get confused. They are asking you the performance testing lifecycle only. So it's, you know, it starts with POC, NFR, test plan, workload modeling, scripting enhancements, test data, scenario and all. On the left hand side, whatever we have for POC, NFR, test plan, workload modeling, all these are document based. Okay, all these are document based. On the right hand side, whatever we have scripting and enhancements, scenario design, execution, analysis, reporting and all, we use tools. We use Vuegen, we use controller, we use analysis component. Okay, so using all those, we perform all these activities. On the left hand side, whatever they are document based. And POC, NFR, we have one session, maybe tomorrow or day after. So we'll cover that NFR. And workload modeling, we have good couple of sessions. Actually, this is very important thing. If you want to start working in a performance testing project, you should understand what is workload modeling. Without knowing workload modeling, you will not be able to do a performance testing project. So it is that important. So we have good couple of sessions for workload modeling as well. So we'll discuss that in our next sessions.
Oh,
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Do we have any specified test plan template?
Yeah, test plan template I can provide you. I can provide you this workload modeling template as well. And actually, I have my own macro, but I don't have in my personal laptop. But if possible, I'll try to recreate the same, and I send a macro to you. You know, you will understand what is that macro all about when we discuss workload modeling. So okay, I'll send you that test plan as well. Test plan, workload modeling, NFR document also I can send you. NFR instance, the questionnaires, I'll send it to you. Whatever the documentation is there on the left hand side, I can provide you those documents.
Okay, thank you.
Uh, uh, One question here, like what is the default DB like when we run with LoadRunner? Earlier it was the MySQL DB, like say if I am running a load and I wanted to store like the test data that was created, like we used to use MySQL. Is it like other DB also it supports
It will
in
support any
LoadRunner?
DB, any DB. It will support any
Means
database.
DB in the sense like say if I'm running a load, I am generating a test data. So I cannot use kind of a client DB like whatever they have the like application DB there. But can I use like any other DB?
That's
Like
what I'm
earlier
saying.
it was
Yeah, you
only
can, if you have your own DB, for example, in some server. So if you want to maintain test data in that server, you can maintain, and while execution, you can always fetch the test data from your server, and DB server, and you can pass it in your test. That's
okay.
always
So all
possible.
kinds of
But
DB are supported, like all flavors,
yeah, it
Oracle
supports. It
and
supports Oracle. Yeah, SQL Server. Everything it will support.
okay,
It's
okay.
not. That's not
And
an issue.
yeah, and for this volume, like workload modeling, like are you going to use any tools for like the traffic volumes that we get as part of a NFR, or is it some macro like that you will
No, no, no.
be like
Actually,
explaining?
generally, workload modeling is all about calculating pacing. I'm not sure if you are aware of pacing. No.
Yes, yes, yeah. We do it in Excel, like the pacing calculation, think time, and
See,
all those like.
it's not mandatory to do in Excel. Yeah, actually, we do it in our mind only. See that if you are mastering this workload modeling, if you have 3 years, 2 years, 3 years experience, actually no need of using this Excel, no need of using everything. If you have a simple calculator, you can calculate the formulas. Okay, so that's easy. But somehow some people will use macros and all. Even I have my own macro. So why we use macros is to get the accurate information, but 99% they use calculator, normal calculator only to calculate pacing. There are some different approaches to calculate it. We'll discuss the all
Yeah,
those
in soak
approaches.
test, like it becomes a tedious part, like when we run it for 72 hours load or those kind of thing, the
Yeah,
tipping
obviously,
point.
right. Yeah, see, because if you have to give the accurate pacing, otherwise, your test will go in vain. Sometimes, for example, your client will ask you to run your load test for 500 iterations. Okay, for 500 iterations, your client. So if you run for 300, then there is no use, right? If you run for 400 also, there is no use. Okay, you can run for 550 or 600. That's okay, acceptable. If your client is asking you to run for 500 iterations, if you're running for 1,000, then there is no use. Okay, so that's the reason. That's important. Accuracy is important. So we'll see that how we can get the best accurate number for with respect to pacing in the workload modeling sessions.
Okay, okay, thank you. Yeah.
Okay. So any other questions for today? Okay, then we'll continue our sessions from Monday. Actually,